What's up, everyone? It's Mr. Radon here, and today I'm going to teach you 5 small, easy tips that you can put into your Virtua Fighter game that will make you just drastically better. These are things that the tutorial doesn't necessarily cover or explain well enough, but by implementing them, these simple 5 tricks, you'll be a much better player almost overnight. These are things that the tutorial kind of glosses over or doesn't explain in depth as much as I would like it to. So, by all means, look at the tutorials in the game, learn the game the way it wants to teach you, but use this as a guide as well. So the first tip that I want to teach you is poking. Poking is a key aspect of this game where, most people when they start a fighting game, they expect to do big damage specials and lots of combos, and that's where you're going to get the bulk of your damage from. But how are you going to get your opponent open enough to deal that damage? And you're going to do that through poking. So no matter what character you use, pretty much the best 2 moves that you're going to have is a neutral punch, which hits high, and a crouching punch, or down punch, which hits EX low. And EX low means that it can be blocked while standing, but it is technically a low attack still. Why these are so good is because they come out extremely fast. When you do them, you're not giving up a lot of frames. I mean, even if they're blocked, you're not at a huge disadvantage. Like, I'm going to set the computer to block these attacks, and I'm going to also change the display to the frame to display my frame advantage, and you'll see that a standing punch, I actually have an advantage if the opponent blocks the attack. I recover faster than they do, and you can see when I hold guard, I start guarding before Kage even comes back to his natural stance. The crouching punch, not so fortunate, but it's important to keep a mix-up and not just do the same attack over and over and over again, because it's easy to deal with that. It's easy to see it coming. Another one that I'm going to add to this list, besides punching and crouching punch, is forward punch, which is usually some kind of elbowish attack, and it hits mid, so it's going to hit opponents that are crouching and blocking, which is kind of why if you can sneak some actual lows into your poke game, they're not as fast, but it's going to force your opponent to start changing up their guard, and then you can hit them with a forward punch. It's going to open them up. The other reason why I like forward punch is because it moves you forward a little bit. It gives you, if you're a little far out to where a punch might not reach, well, Aoi kind of moves forward really well on her standing punch, but if you're kind of from far out, a forward punch is going to really draw you in close and allow you to keep the pressure going without giving up too many frames. Virtua Fighter specifically, all 3D fighters in general, but Virtua Fighter specifically is extremely frame heavy in that you never want to surrender frame advantage if at all possible. Think of it almost like a sport where, like for football example, you're in possession of the ball, and so you're on offense when you have the ball. Virtua Fighter works the same way. You're on offense when you have frame advantage. When you can send out attacks without getting interrupted or counter-poked, you have an offensive advantage. If you lose that offensive advantage by overextending yourself with attacks that are too slow, which I'm having a hard time finding here. She has nothing besides like -3 here. -7, that's something, so -8. At that point, Kage's got a huge advantage on me because the standing punch is usually about 11 to 13 frames. So if I'm -8, he can put out a punch before I can do any other possible offensive move. So it's important to stick with attacks in terms of opening your opponent up that are safe on block, that don't give you away too many frames, whether they hit or not. And that way, you can kind of keep the pressure on. See, if they hit, you're going to get +5, you're going to get +4, and you can really kind of keep your offense going. And that way, you can keep them guessing, make them react to your moves, and have an offense that really keeps them locked down as tightly as possible without them taking a big risk. You want to keep their risks high to deal with your low-risk attacks. And that's one way, a really simple, easy way, just by using punch and down punch, and also forward punch at times when you want to break low guards. That's going to allow you to really dictate the flow of a match for as long as the opponent is willing to just stand there and block or get hit by these attacks. So absolutely learn your combos, try and set up big damage, but when everything else fails, or when you're at a neutral sort of anyone's game position, start poking and see what you can get out of it. Make them try and beat your pokes, and then you can capitalize on their whiffs and get big damage. The next thing that I want to talk about is movement. And as you can see, since it's a 3D game, you can do an 8-way walk here in any direction just by holding the stick. In fact, I'm going to pull up the command display again, and you can see that just by moving the stick, I can walk wherever I like. But you see, it's a really slow walk speed. It doesn't really get me anywhere out of range fast enough to deal with any sort of attack. And that's universal across all characters. No character really has a tremendous walk speed in this game. So the best way to get around that, obviously, is dashing, which you're going to do, obviously, with forward, forward, or back, back to do dashes. If you're going to move in this game, either towards your opponent or away from them, you want to do it through dashes. You really just... Walking is not going to get you hardly anything ever. So whenever possible, use dashes. And that's going to allow you to, you know, if you get an opponent on the ground, and then you can back off and let them try and whiff an attack and then get back up close. So walking is a no-no. Just don't really even think about doing it. Dashing is infinitely better. And when possible, if you can start this as a habit now, instead of using forward, forward, or back, back to dash, use down, forward as diagonals, or down, back, and you see you do these little crouch dashes. Crouch dashing is almost 100% of the time better than regular dashing. The main problem with it is that it can get stopped by mids, such as forward P, but they're faster than regular dashes. You come out of them more quickly by about a frame or two than you do with standing dashes. In addition to that, they're going to duck highs. Because it is a crouching dash, you're considered in a crouching state. So if your opponent's trying to hit you with highs, you're going to be able to duck under them and get close with a crouch dash, or duck under them and get away if you want to back off a little bit and get some space. Another advantage that a crouch dash has is that since it puts you in a crouch state, any moves that you have, such as this one right here, Musoha, that require you to be crouching and then hit down forward P, that's enough for you to be in that state. And so you don't have to buffer a crouch and then do that. If you crouch dash, you're already in that crouching state, and you can make the move come out. Which is really, it's just like a nice little shortcut that saves you some time so that you can get up close, you can get the attack that you want, because those are typically launchers, or in Aui's case, I mean, that's going to launch on counter hit, but it's also going to set up her throw game as well. So you don't want to make it too telegraphed so that every time you're coming in with a crouch dash, you're going to do that move. It's perfectly fine to cancel your dash with hitting the guard button, or just get up close and make them start guarding, and then you can throw them. If they're expecting the mid to come out, if they're expecting the move to come as soon as you get out of your crouch dash, which I'm having a hard time doing all of a sudden, but there we go. So see, if they're expecting that, you can just crouch dash in and then throw them, and that's a nice little mind game to keep them on their toes. So that's a little bit of attacking and movement. In the next section, I want to talk a little bit more about what to do when you're the one being attacked, and I will cover that in just a moment.